Hey, welcome back to PEP 406, Curriculum Design and Physical Education. We are in Unit 2, and we're in the second chapter of Unit 2 of our Curriculum and Instructional Models. Chapter 9 will cover the skill theme approach. And the skill theme approach is just what it sounds like. You're going to teach skills through various themes. It's very popular in elementary and middle school, and it might be an instructional method that you incorporate into a larger model when you're first teaching a skill for a sport or a unit, even when you move on into secondary. So we're glad you're here. Let's dig right into the skill theme approach. So today, here's kind of what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about how the skill theme approach is a developmental approach. You're going to develop skills through designing your curriculum this way or using this as an instructional method. We will dig into exactly what the skill theme approach is. We'll talk about a movement analysis framework and introduce you to that. We'll talk about the four-phase curriculum development approach used with the skill theme model, as well as we will break down how this model aligns with the various NASP standards, which one it has a strong link and which one it's kind of just an overarching umbrella weaker link. And then we will go on to actually applying the model to an activity on curriculum and instruction development. So let's get started. What is a developmental approach to physical education? When you read the textbook, Hoffman, Young, and Kleisis, this is a quote from 1981, describe the developmental approach in PE as the following three things. It has a focus on educating the whole child. We are working in all the different domains, the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor domains. So we're focusing on the whole child model. And actually, this is something very big now in DESE, that we focus on the whole school, whole child, whole community type of model. It's been coming more into vogue in the last couple of years, but that's something you need to understand how to do. Next, experiences related to developmental task and focusing on skills and stages of motor development. So remember, I told you in the intro here, this is a good curriculum model to build your design for elementary physical education, especially early elementary ages, because we're going to look at the skills and stages of motor development as we progress through the grade level expectations of different motor learning motor learning patterns and motor skills. Number 3, activities should be chosen to facilitate a theme, not just develop an activity. The skill theme approach in PE is often referred to as a developmental model for curriculum development because we're developing skills. We're not really working on an activity at the end. That just helps us pull all the skills together and give students an opportunity to do those in a more open environment. But we're really focused in on the skill. So you would kind of consider this as a closed activity. You're focusing in on the development of a specific skill. Might be in individual partners or small groups. It's going to start generally with a direct approach and some teacher-led demonstrations and activities before you let students allow to progress to some of their own learning. The skill theme approach defined, if you would define it, it would be the selection of a skill and all of the variables that could accompany that specific skill. So the variables include things like concepts, context, and combinations. A concept is a thing that enhance or enrich a skill, such as the how and the where you might do this, the relationship to some other skills. When you talk about hopping to skipping to galloping, those concepts can kind of come together. And you might talk about where you might see these things. All right, the hopping could be a frog. All right, you could go to the galloping would be a horse. All right, context is a little bit different. It's the environment, situation, or setting the skill would be demonstrated in for that specific student. You might talk about jumping and how the high jump and the standing long jump and the running long jump and jumping on a trampoline are all different. So you can give them some context of how jumps might be done differently. And then the last thing is some combination of skills. So after you've learned some skills, you might bring in, if we stay with our jumping theme, you might bring in things such as the running long jump and then possibly even the triple jump later on. So when you combine some skills where you run and then do something, which later on you're going to have multiple motor patterns, combinations, it allows you to add variables in. So we want to start with our teaching this in the selection of a skill in a closed setting, and then move to an open setting where we add in those variables. So that's just our standard good teaching method. The use of variables provide a chance for enrichment, to allow us to be a broader topic, to put breadth to the activity, and to allow some depth and deeper understanding for the student. As we drill down a little further into the skill theme approach, it is where we have an opportunity to teach a variety of movement experiences. We're not just looking at gameplay now, right? We're going to look at motor patterns and movement experiences. Will we add in some specialized sports skills later? Absolutely. But we want to start with just teaching the basic skills. All right, so this would be anywhere from your non-locomotor, our stretching and reaching, to our locomotor, where our body's in movement. It could be running, jumping, uh, uh, actually even jumping to do an activity, into our manipulative activities where we would be striking. That could be striking a volleyball. It could be hitting something like a golf ball with a golf swing, or a baseball, softball, or even kicking. All right. We will teach basic skills and concepts studied in a variety of contexts, and then maybe relate them to a build-up game or activity where they have a chance to show off these skills. All right, so we want to teach the basic skills. You would want to teach just the skill of kicking and kicking different objects before you ever play a build-up or lead-up game that could lead to a kickball or soccer unit. We want to use various approaches to solving movement challenges. Once you teach kids different skills, you want to design some activities that allow them to use different movement challenges. These would just be your combination elementary cooperative challenge games. It might be a made-up game where you do a variety of different things. You know, you have to kick a ball over here you know, you have to kick a ball between your partner's legs in a freeze tag game to get them back in the game. You got to kick a ball over here and run over here and put a ball in a trash can. Whatever the case, you need to make up a variety of activities so students can use all these skills to solve some movement challenges. And remember, the goal of your activity or your build-up type game is your movement challenge. And hopefully, as you go through the skill theme approach, this evolves to the application of these basic skills and combination skills in build-up games, possibly sports, and then don't forget, these are important things for gymnastics, dance, creative movement type activities. Let's talk about a movement analysis framework. All right, this is something you might not have heard about before. It gives you an opportunity to allow students to acquire skills. It focuses the instruction on skill acquisition, actually learning the movement concept, not learning how to play a game. Another thing that's important, especially in the early elementary ages, are the movement control principles. How can you stop? How can you get balance? Right? How can you have spatial awareness of other people in the class? So we want to talk about how to control some movements as well, not just do the movements, how to control our body to do them safely. The major components of this movement analysis framework include body awareness, right? That is understanding where your body is in space with other, as well as balance, all right? Spatial awareness, that's important, like I said, for the safety of your other students, as well as the safety of the student doing the activity, all right? Effort, we can start talking about effort. Hey, let's just try to do this activity. You only jump 2 times, make sure you bend your knees further and really launch. And then we can talk about relationships. This could be relationships of people in space. It could be relationships to different heights. If we're going to jump over something, a small cone or a larger cone, or possibly 2 students holding a jump rope, what's the relationship in space that you need to consider for that activity? Right? So those are some major components of the movement analysis framework. You need to analyze each movement pattern, determine how you're going to teach the skill, determine how to have some movement control principles so your students can do that safely, and then always break down these components for elementary students: body awareness, spatial awareness, how do we get effort, and how do we relate this to different levels of challenge. What are some model characteristics of the skill theme model? All right. First of all, it promotes learning and competence in a variety of our movement skills and movement patterns: locomotor, non-locomotor, and manipulative skills. Right? Competence, remember, means that we are becoming a average or above average performer of a skill. It's not an expert, it's more than a beginner, but competent means you reach an acceptable level of success. What else does this model provide us with? It provides us with various developmental appropriate experiences for our students. It helps us build instructionally appropriate strategies for learning, and it also helps us reflect on the needs and interests of the students in our school, especially in the PK through 3 and all the way through integrated through the elementary school years. So developmentally appropriate experiences match the skills to the development level of students. Think of the cognitive, the social, the physical, the emotional, the psychomotor, the affective, all of those different areas or domains. All right. And make sure it's instructionally appropriate. And that means we use strategies that match the instruction to the development or skill level of our students. And if we don't know where to start when we're designing lessons, we should go right to the grade level expectations and see if our students are on grade level. If not, we need to try to get them to approach that through our teaching. So we talked about skills. So how do we teach by skill themes? That means we're going to teach skills and concepts for understanding, moving to competence, and then on to mastery, and application. Let me add that in here. So we want to have some understanding. We want to then become pretty good at it to be competent to reach a level of success, hopefully approach mastery, and then be able to apply them in various settings with different variables. How do we do this? We select content appropriate for children at their individual developmental levels. So we need to remember, hopefully with our adaptive PE, that we have to recognize students have a variety of developmental levels within a single class. You may have advanced learners, you may have struggling learners, you may have a special needs student, and you're going to have a group of students that's probably right on grade level. But early in the elementary, students are going to be all over the place. You might not remember this from motor learning, but at that level, the female body has better spatial awareness and motor skills. The males are usually a little bit behind at that level, and then it catches up through the later elementary years. How do we want to do this? We need to select skills that lead to, remember, our program outcome goal at the end of 12th grade is to help people have physically active lifestyles. So if we can select these basic skills as well as a variety of skills so people can do a variety of things later in life, they can provide the foundation for students to have a physically active lifestyle. This means developing competence in a variety of skills and teaching students to have some self-confidence in doing those. And then last, we want to combine skills and movement concepts across various activity patterns. So we want to bring in skills that we do combination skills where we start with a non-locomotor, possibly move to a locomotor, and then end with a manipulative skill. This helps you as the teacher build bridges between skill acquisition, that's learning the skill, and skill acquisition, that's actually applying it to a variety of settings. So let's talk a bit about movement skills and concepts. Remember, movement skills are considered the action verbs in our lesson objective, right? When we talk about the observable language, this is where we're going to bring in your English background, all right? What are some action verbs, you might ask, right? Remember, that's the throwing, the catching, the jumping, the moving, the dribbling. That's the actual doing, all right? So we want to remember movement skills are the action verbs in our task condition criteria, in our tasks generally. They're the descriptors, where the action takes place, how the body moves. Does the action take place alone or with other actions? Is it with or without equipment? These are all some descriptors we're going to provide for our students once we explain. Today we're going to throw. Where are we going to throw? We're going to throw at a target 5 feet away. How the body moves. We're going to start with underhand throws, and then we're going to move to overhand throws. First, we're going to start throwing at a target, and then we're going to add in a partner to try to throw and catch. When we add in the partner, first we'll use a large ball that's soft and catch it, and then we will move to using baseballs and softballs to catch with equipment such as a glove. All right? That's a way to break down movement skills and concepts, remembering that they're the action verbs. Next, how do we introduce skills and concepts? So skills and concepts can be taught as either a single lesson or a series of lessons throughout the curriculum. That's why we're looking at curriculum design, how you put all these series of lessons together to get to a larger end objective. When skills are taught first in this skill theme model, they should be introduced and practiced in isolation. This is a closed practice setting, limiting variables, very teacher-directed, hands-on. You're going to be right on top providing observation skills as a teacher and learning related or skill developmental feedback, focusing on corrective actions. Then as students reach mastery, as they move through competence towards mastery, concepts should be added to provide a variety and breadth and depth to the skill. This means this is where we progress to more of an open setting. As students get competent, we might add in a variable. As they approach mastery of a skill, we're going to add in multiple variables, right? This may happen at different times for different individuals. Remember, this is kind of a continuum, and especially in the early elementary years, students are going to be all over the place in skill level. When concepts are taught first, the single movement concept should be the focus of the lesson. The activity and multiple concepts, when you're adding in your variables, are really later on for more advanced learners. So really focus your lesson on the initial movement concept and then progress as your individuals progress to some different things. Let's talk about the curriculum development approach, or the 4-phase approach of developing curriculum through the skill theme model. Phase 1, the skill theme begins with the study of the basic skill. Do we understand the cognitive and the psychomotor domains of learning? Can we teach the performance understanding to our students of the concept of mastering a skill? And this skill, remember, is appropriate for the age level and the specific students in your class. So you're going to have to massage that for your variety of learning styles and where your students are on the continuum of learning the skill. So it begins with the study of the basic skill, and then how you're going to consider it both cognitively and psychomotor to teach it to your students. Phase 2, following the introduction of the basic skill and move through competence to mastery of the selected critical elements, movement concepts and other skills can be added. All right, so remember, we want to work here on critical elements. Do we remember what the critical elements are? Critical elements are the critical phases. So we remember we teach all of our skills in the 4-step method: the stance, the preparatory phase, the action phase, and the follow-through. Right? We may add, if a skill is very complex, there might be another one inserted in there. But generally, that's the 4 critical element phases. So we want to teach that. And as we teach skills, you always want to start with the stance. Then you want to teach where you should end, the follow-through. And then you'll start teaching in the middle. You'll start teaching the preparatory phase and the action phase. All right? So show people the stance, show people where they should end, the follow-through, and then you'll work on developing the movement patterns in the middle. All right? Phase number 3 in the 4-phase approach. This is where we use skills and/or combination skills to practice the skill in a variety of contexts to expand the possibilities for applications of the skill. All right? This is where we're going to add in some of our variables. We're going to now take the skill from just working on our form to putting it in some kind of activity possibly adding a partner, possibly adding a target to kind of give students an opportunity to look at results. But this is where we can take our skills or combination of skills and apply them in some kind of activity type setting that includes a variety of variables. And then phase 4 is where you apply the skill in a chosen area, an activity, or a build-up game or sport. All right, this is where students will actually have a chance to be a little bit competitive and try to do an activity. They can put the skills to the challenge to see if they can meet the level of challenge of the game or problem. So this is a good opportunity to then, the fourth phase is where they're putting the skills into actions and they're going to actually look for some kind of results. So let's break down the standards with the skill theme approach. All right. If you look at NASP standard number 1, motor skills and movement patterns, this is where the strongest link is. So when we develop curriculum, it's important, if we're looking at NASP standard number 1, that we consider the skill theme approach. If you then take it from a curriculum model and use it more as an instructional model on just a lesson or part of a lesson, if you're introducing a new skill, this at least concept could be used as an instructional method with your students, not just a curriculum model, if that makes sense. NASP standard number 2, they're going to apply knowledge of concepts, principles, strategies, and tactics related to movement and performance. There's a very strong link to that. As you move from closed settings to open settings, NASP standard 2 comes into effect. And then NASP standard 3, 4, and 5 could be byproducts or umbrella or overarching standards that could be taught through the activities you're using. But remember, NASP standard number 1 and 2 have really strong links to the skill theme approach, especially in the introductory phase of a skill and in the elementary school years. So, how do you plan to use a theme? First of all, you select the skill to be taught, right? If you're going to teach a skill, the first thing you need to do is a task analysis. What's a task analysis, you might ask? It is where you break down the skill so you understand the critical components of the skill. Do we have a rubric or a checklist or our checkpoints? Remember, this is our critical components. So if we're going to jump, you want to start with the stance, right? And then you'll move on to the preparatory phase. That's where you squat down and take your butt down like you're going to sit in a chair, but still staying on balance. Generally, your arms are going to come up forward. You might teach people to kind of clench their fist and put it out in front of them. And then your action phase is where you actually spring. You're going to then take your body, you're going to take a movement pattern and extend your legs from your crouch, come up off your toes and launch yourself into the air as you pump your arms all together, right? And then the follow through will be a motion to try to pull your arms down to your knees, extend yourself straight up as high as you can, right? And then you also have to consider your landing as an extra phase so students don't get injured. So on your landing, you have to recoil. When you come down, stay on balance and try to bend your knees to absorb some of the shock. So break down that task so you actually know how to teach all the critical components of it. That's doing a task analysis of a skill, is using our 4 or more critical components. All right, brainstorm some different ideas. Think of ideas how students might jump. Are we just jumping straight up? Are we doing a broad jump? Are we doing a high jump and flopping over something? All right. Are we going to allow them to take a step and jump? So brainstorm some different ideas to select the skill you're going to teach and then how you might introduce it to students and allow them chances for practice. Next, consider the progression. We want to move from simple to complex. Remember to apply your scope and then your sequence. How are we going to teach the skill? If we're teaching a jump, are we going to teach a squat first? Right? Or have they already learned the technique of a squat, since that's a non-locomotor skill? Then we're going to move all the way through the stages. Just jumping straight up in the air and landing would possibly be a simple method. A more complex method would be a running broad jump or actually a high jump using the Fosbury flop technique. All right. So what is essential to learning the different jumping skills? That's going to be what you put in your sequence or progression of activities to teach in the skill theme approach. Next, after you've done your task analysis, you've considered how you want to progress from simple to complex to apply your scope and sequence to the activity, you have to plan for teaching. So what are your curriculum end goals? Do you look at your grade level expectations here to see where this should be across grade levels? If you're teaching third grade and you don't teach the fourth grade, what are the skills that students need to be successful in fourth grade? Are you teaching them to a level of mastery in third grade? So consider that's how you look at the whole scope and sequence of your curriculum and how it's important for a curriculum guide to come completely together. So then look at your performance outcomes within the grade level. Are we going to progress them through different levels of jumping within our third grade plan? What are we going to start out with? How are we going to design this sequence? And then plan your specific activities or lessons. So that's how you plan using the skill theme approach. How do you assess in the skill theme process? Remember, since this is an introductory instructional method or an elementary level, generally, curriculum design approach, assessments for the skill theme approach should focus on the student's progress in skill development. Can they learn exactly what they're doing? Are they having some progression? It's real important that they have cognitive as well as psychomotor or performance understanding of the skill. All right, so that's critical too. And then we need to look at movement concepts, possibly combinations and applications. So in your notes right now, write down 3 ways you could assess these 3 concepts. So just write down one for each one. How could you assess the student's progress and skill development? How could you assess the progress and cognitive and performance understanding of the skill? And then next, how could you assess movement concepts, combinations, and applications? All right. So we'll come back to this. I want to see if you, at the end here, if you've written that down in your notes and if you've come up with some good ideas to assess this. So here's a summary of our lesson. First of all, teaching by skill themes establishes the focus on the acquisition of specific skills and the use of those skills in a variety of contexts. This is an excellent curriculum model to use in the elementary age, or if you want to just use this model as an instructional design approach for a specific lesson, it's effective, especially when you're introducing or a new skill in a unit later on in the middle school and secondary ages. The progression of the skill development, remember, it varies by students. Your instruction should be student-centered, right, considering the performance levels of your students and their skill level, but still remain focused on the outcomes and the exit goals of this lesson, of your grade level expectations, and across the K through 12 curriculum. So if students are struggling, you really should try to design learning experiences to get them to approach grade level and not just say, hey, this is where they're at, we're not going to get them there. You should really motivate, design, redesign, rethink, give chances for improvement to help students progress to approach grade level. So planning, it's a critical part of the skill theme approach to physical education. You have to actually do your task analysis. You have to design your sequence of activities. So it should be pretty systematic, and then you should have plenty of alternative things done, because if most of your students approach that or go past your plan, you need to have some extra activities to allow them to then use these skills in a more open skill setting. So remember, the skill theme approach requires a focus on teaching that leads to the acquisition of skills, knowledge, and dispositions. So you have to understand the skill. You have to, as the teacher, practice observing that skill to look at the critical components and understand how to diagnose performance errors and provide teaching, all right, provide activities, provide a plan, provide corrective actions to help students then acquire those skills. So you as a teacher need to learn, if you don't already, how to observe that skill and actually help your students improve. Remember, you're not just a monitor. You're not a substitute teacher. You're not a recess leader just having students play and be busy. You are actually a teacher charged with teaching them these skills. So in order to teach, you have to be able to observe, diagnose critical flaws, and provide corrective actions to help people improve. So remember that when you're teaching. The first year teachers struggle too much just trying to have some organized chaos and being a leader to make sure everybody's just in line or doing things and active, and that's part of it. But the other part is we actually have to remember to keep a focus on teaching. So let's go back to the previous slide. So in assessment, how could we design some kind of assessment to check a student's progress in skill development? We're looking at skill development. There are a variety of ways. You could do any type of observation. In the elementary, probably the teacher is the most critical, but you could do a peer or self-observation as well as students progress to being able to observe and have those skills, and do some kind of checklist to see if a student has the correct stance, the correct follow-through, right? And then possibly as they progress the other stages of the skill, the other critical components. How can we check the cognitive and performance understanding of the skill? Right? This is where we could have them explain what it looks like, right, to be in a correct stance. So they can talk us through the correct stance. Are we unbalanced? Do we have our knees bent? Do we have our hands, our elbows bent at a 90-degree angle down at our side for the jump? And then what's the performance understanding of the skill? Now can you show me the correct stance? Right? This could be done in an interviewing technique with your class. All right, or a teacher observation as well. How do we know if they have movement concepts, combinations, and applications? You could do this a variety of ways. If you're doing some kind of build-up game, you could do a gameplay rubric or checklist. All right, you could do an individual skill checklist as well, but here we're really looking more at combination movements. So those are different ways. Hopefully, when you did this activity, when I asked you to, those are some of the ideas you came up with on assessing through the skill theme approach. So let's break down to our assignment. We want to now take everything we learned in this lecture and our reading and apply our knowledge to using the skill theme model within a lesson. All right. So this is similar to the assignment for Chapter 8. It's just tweaked a little bit here for Chapter 9. We'll do a couple of these to help you understand how to use the skill theme model within a lesson as an instructional approach. All right. So remember, a curriculum model means that's how you're designing, teaching the curriculum or specific unit. But when you break it down and then use it within a lesson, that when it becomes more of an instructional model or instructional approach. But all these can be interchangeable. It's just where you use those within the curriculum building. So for the Chapter 9 assignment, skill theme model lesson concept, number 1, list 3 lesson concepts that you could use with the skill theme model. I want you to list them A, B, and C. Make them all distinctly different skills. So don't give me long jump, broad jump, high jump. If one of them's a jump, the rest of them can't be jumps. So think of activities to teach elementary level, grade level appropriate movement skills. All right, so this should be in the elementary age. These are not sports skills, these are movement skills. Then 2, provide a detailed lesson concept aligned with the skill theme model. So choose either A, B, or C, and then do this. All right, write a detailed paragraph explaining your activity and how it is aligned with the model. So you'll probably write down how you're going to demonstrate and explain the activity, how you're going to have some teacher-led guided practice, all right, in a closed setting. You're then going to move to 1 or 2 to 3 things you might do to add some variables in an open setting. These can still be teacher-led or move to some guided practice, because remember, we're acquiring the skill. We're probably not going to get quite to independent practice the first day of this. You might on your last point if you have 3 or 4 points. and then an activity that could put these movement skills that you're using to a test, and then how you would close and assess it. All right, so that's what I mean when I say provide a detailed lesson concept. But make sure it's aligned with how you would use the skill theme model and instruction based on one of your activities or patterns in number 1. Then number 3, you're going to write a detailed 3-part performance objective for the lesson concept you just described in number 2. Make sure you use the task condition criteria method with commas in between each one. It doesn't need to be long. The task could be, these students will learn jumping. All right. It doesn't need to be paragraph period, paragraph period. This should be, remember, this is written for elementary students, so it should be very simple language. Task, comma, condition, comma, criteria. This is the what, this is the how you're going to do it, and this is the how well. All right. Make sure it's an observable language, because it should connect back to your assessment strategy or your last bullet point in number 2. All right. And then list and detail the following for your selected lesson concept. These are going to basically take this paragraph and then break it down a little bit. How will I demonstrate and explain the skill? How will I provide practice in a closed setting? How will I provide practice in an open setting? And how will I assess or know the students met the performance objective? All right, so this is a paragraph kind of explaining it, a few light bullet points, and then this is a little bit more detail on your number 2 after you've written your performance objective. Hopefully that makes sense for you. All right, so here's our to-do list for today. If you haven't yet, finish reading chapter 9, the skill theme approach. It's 20 pages, 205 to 226. You know, you can skim some of it, but try to read this, because this is actually going to help you have the understanding how to use these curriculum models. It might be the only place that you get some of this information in our program. Number 2, do the assignment I just explained. The secondary, hang on, I had to update this. Number 2, complete your skill theme model lesson concept that I just went over on the last slide. So print a canvas and then print a copy for your portfolio. If we have time next time in class, we're going to have a brief class discussion on this, how we can use it as a curriculum model and an instructional model. Keep working on your secondary PE curriculum activity. All right, I gave you that last time. Give you a little bit of time to work on that, but make sure we're working on that activity. Continue working on it. Try to progress it and get that turned in early as soon as you feel like you have it done well. And then read Chapter 10, Adventure Education, before our next class meeting. That's page 229 through 253. Adventure Education focuses in on kind of your cooperative challenge type games. It's a way to get kids excited and working together and solving a task through either convergent or divergent learning. All right. Hey, thanks for coming again. Hopefully you had a great day and you learned something about the skill theme approach. It's a great approach that you'd use in elementary curriculum development, as well as in some instructional design when you first introduce lessons really across the grade levels K through 12. Have a great day. If you have any questions, let me know, and get to work on your curriculum projects, your secondary PE curriculum activity, as well as your curriculum guide, cumulative summative activity. Have a great day.